Known as Sin City, Las Vegas sells itself as a place where anything is possible. Iconic casinos, luxurious hotels, grandiose shows, award-winning restaurants, and the seductive promise of becoming a millionaire overnight make the city a veritable amusement park for adults. But behind the neon lights and glamour, there is a dark side that few people know about. Did you know, for example, that this city was built with the help of the Mafia? What do Las Vegas, the Mafia, the Kennedy assassination, Frank Sinatra, and the movie The Godfather have in common? What's more, did you know that in addition to this turbulent past, today there are people living literally under the casinos? Beneath the busy streets, mega hotels, and slot machines, there is an underground world where people live in unimaginable conditions. Want to know more? Then stay with us. Today, Bello Mundo will take you to Las Vegas without the luxury filters. We're going to descend to deep, almost claustrophobic, levels to get to know its hidden face. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of individuals living like rats in the city's dark tunnels. Number 1. The unlikely city that shouldn't exist. Las Vegas, or simply Vegas, sprang up in the middle of nowhere, in Nevada, an American state famous for arid landscapes, mountains on the horizon, and a heat that puts anyone off in summer. When we talk about Vegas, the image is a light show, gigantic casinos, epic parties, award-winning restaurants, and an endless frenzy. It's as if the city is shouting, "Come on, it's going to be too much fun to resist." Casinos are the beating heart of this place. Flashing slot machines, roulette tables promising fortunes, and croupiers with rehearsed smiles are all part of the show. But Vegas isn't just about gambling. In between blackjack games, the city is transformed for events such as CES, one of the world's biggest technology fairs. During the event, neons give way to the glow of state-of-the-art screens, robots, and autonomous cars. And of course, Las Vegas has a love affair with Hollywood, the perfect backdrop for iconic films such as Hangover, 11 Men and a Secret, and even James Bond in Diamonds Are Forever. Not to mention CSI, Las Vegas, which turned fictional crimes into a worldwide phenomenon. Ironically, real crimes were practically the currency of exchange when the city was born. But we'll get to that in a moment. First, we need to explore the soul of Vegas, the famous Strip. Number 2. Las Vegas Boulevard. Vegas wouldn't be so popular if it weren't for the famous Las Vegas Boulevard, or Strip, for the cooler types. This avenue isn't just a jumble of hotels and casinos. It's a passport to the whole world. Want to visit Egypt? Hurry to Luxor and its giant pyramid. Think Paris is too far away? There's an Eiffel Tower waiting for you. And for the romantics, the canals of Venice, complete with singing gondoliers, are at the Venetian, all within a few blocks. Yes, it's cheesy, but it's the kind of cheesy we love, you know? Number 3. No clocks, no windows, no ends. Now, if you've ever been to a casino there, you may have noticed something curious, or you may not have noticed it at all, which is exactly the point. There are no clocks, and obviously that's on purpose. With no clocks and no windows, you completely lose track of time. This strategy is so effective that many people forget to eat, sleep, or, well, leave the casino. Often, while the players are there thinking it's still 8 p.m., it's actually dawn and the birds are singing. Hardcore psychological manipulation, don't you think? Number 4. Lotteries, no way. Now, a curiosity that seems to contradict everything you know about Vegas. Lotteries are banned in the state of Nevada. Yes, the land of billion-dollar casinos doesn't allow scratch cards or state lotteries. It sounds strange, but it makes sense. After all, Nevada doesn't want competition. Why split the cake with lotteries when the casinos are doing the heavy lifting of luring tourists and their money straight to the slots and poker tables? Strategy is everything, my dear. But as not all that glitters is gold, here, my friends, comes a dark side that you may not be familiar with. The Mafia underworld. Number 5. Dark history. At the end of the 19th century, Las Vegas was nothing like what we know today. It was just a stopping point in the middle of the desert, a place for merchants and travelers to rest before facing the scorching heat and vastness of the American West. A small, lost oasis surrounded by miles of nothing. Everything began to change in 1905 when the town got its first railroad station. This transformed the town into a strategic point for transportation, but it was still far from becoming the center of entertainment and excess that we know. The real turning point came in the 1920s when Nevada decided to adopt a radically liberal policy to boost local growth. Gambling, free, prostitution, allowed, dry law. Forget it, here the glass is always full. Marriage and divorce, so simple that you could settle everything in your lunch break. And so Las Vegas began to build its reputation as Sin City, a place where the rules were flexible and pleasure was guaranteed. But the big plot twist came in the 1930s with the construction of Hoover Dam. The dam brought something essential to transform that village in the middle of nowhere into an urban center: water and electricity. As a result, Vegas became a city ready to welcome anyone who wanted to gamble, not just on roulette, but on the potential of the place. That's how the state of Nevada legalized gambling. While the rest of the United States cracked down on casinos and clandestine bars, Vegas became a haven of permissiveness in the middle of a moralistic country. That's when the Mafia realized the city's potential. And, my friends, that's when the story starts to get more sinister. Number 6. Mafia. When we talk about Las Vegas's past, it's impossible to ignore its connection to organized crime. If today the city is a playground of lights and fun for adults, in the golden years it was the backyard of the biggest mafia families in the United States. Iconic casinos were built in the middle of the desert, with money coming straight from the coffers of the Mafia, who used the casino hotels to launder money and expand their business. Among the legendary names in this history, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel stands out. A visionary and mobster, Bugsy saw the potential of Vegas before anyone else. In 1946, he opened the Flamingo, a luxury hotel casino which, despite a disastrous start, shaped the future of the city. Obviously, his failure was costly. He was murdered in '47, but he served as an inspirational muse for many families. Indeed, inspired by Bugsy, mafia families from Chicago, New York, and Cleveland invested heavily, turning Vegas into an empire where casino profits were siphoned off into clandestine coffers. Of course, this wouldn't have been possible without political allies who ignored the schemes in exchange for favors and bribes. It was a game of interests where everyone won, except those who dared to stand up to the Mafia. The mobsters' control over the casinos and the city is portrayed in classics such as The Godfather, Part 2, and especially Martin Scorsese's Casino 1995, which explores fraudulent accounting, betrayals, and the burning of files. Speaking of which, global warming has brought a dark chapter to light. In 2022, Lake Mead, the largest reservoir in the United States, which is practically in the backyard of Las Vegas, dried up enough to reveal the secrets of the mobsters. Among them, the body of a man in a barrel, with clear marks of execution, a typical modus operandi of the 70s and 80s, when the Mafia dominated the region. Number 7. Kennedy and Sinatra. The Mafia didn't expand its empire in Las Vegas without strategic allies. Political figures and influential businessmen, even if they had no direct links to crime, facilitated the way. And this is where the theories and intriguing stories involving none other than John Kennedy and Frank Sinatra come in. During the presidential elections of 1960, rumors circulated that the Mafia, especially the Chicago and New York groups, had helped JFK's campaign. The idea was to secure votes in key states to defeat Richard Nixon. In return, they expected protection for their businesses and less federal pressure. Sam Giancana, a Chicago boss with interests in Vegas, was the central link in this supposed partnership. Sinatra, for his part, a close friend of Kennedy's and close to various Mafia figures, reinforced speculation that there was at least an informal connection. But then came the turning point. After JFK took office, the government changed its tune. Robert F. Kennedy, the president's brother and attorney general, declared war on organized crime. Casinos, money laundering schemes, and mafia operations in Vegas were investigated like never before. The result? Huge resentment on the part of the crime bosses who felt betrayed. These events gave rise to conspiracy theories. Did the Mafia have a hand in the assassination of JFK in 1963? Many believe so, but to this day there is no concrete proof. Everything remains a matter of speculation, but the stories continue to feed the fascination surrounding that period. Over time, the Mafia lost ground in Vegas. Large corporations took over the casinos, and the city became the global tourist destination we know today. However, theories suggest that the Mafia never completely disappeared. It just learned to operate in the shadows. And speaking of shadows, the Vegas underworld is no longer just about Mafia and conspiracies. Number 8. Gold isn't for everyone, the poor class. When we talk about money-driven places, one thing is certain. Where there is wealth, there is also inequality. A clear example of this is Dubai. While the elite flaunt unbelievable luxury, immigrant workers live in precarious conditions and often in situations bordering on slave labor, literally trapped in shacks far from the major centers, where tourists are practically forbidden to go. If you want to know more, check out our video, The Dark Side, the Dubai they don't want you to see or know about, which exposes this reality in detail. Now, returning to Las Vegas, the story is not so different. Under the bright lights of the casinos, many live in the shadow of this spectacle. Drivers, cooks, valets, security guards, and waiters occupy the city's backstage, working hard to keep the show running. However, these jobs often pay little and don't offer the stability needed to keep up with the high local cost of living. With expensive rents and high expenses, it's easy for many to fall behind. Those who arrive in Vegas dreaming of a better life can end up mired in debt or facing severe financial problems. For some, the limit is crossed with addictions to gambling, alcohol, or drugs. Meanwhile, the big corporations continue to make profits. But little of that money reaches the people who keep the city afloat. And what is the solution for many? The underworld, where people literally live like rats in the city's galleries. Number 9. The tunnels. Las Vegas may be in the middle of the desert, but the storms, when they come, are unforgiving. The city saw that it needed a solution and created an ingenious drainage system, underground tunnels to channel rainwater before it caused flooding on the surface. So far, so good, right? Tunnels made for water, top-notch engineering, and the glitter of the Strip protected. But the reality was different. These tunnels, originally built to contain flooding, ended up becoming home to hundreds of people who literally live underground. It sounds like a lie, I know, but it's the reality for many. Number 10. Why live in the tunnels? But how does someone end up living in the drainage tunnels? Well, the reasons vary, but the story almost always begins with a dream gone wrong. There are those who have come from another state, lured by the promise of opportunities, only to find precarious jobs and bills that are impossible to pay. There are those who lost everything gambling, betting their lives on a roulette wheel that never turned in their favor. Others have faced layoffs, evictions, or addictions, whether to alcohol, drugs, or, of course, the casino itself. With no money, no family nearby, and nowhere to go, the tunnels become a last resort. It's not luxury or security, but it's a place to be. As is the case with John Aitchison, the one appearing on your screen. At 67, he lives in the tunnels, even though he has a steady job in a convenience store located on the Strip, the famous illuminated street in Las Vegas. His choice to live underground has to do with economics. For him, living in an apartment would mean spending practically his entire salary on rent, bills, and food, leaving little or no money for other uses. In his words in an interview with The Guardian, he moved from Orlando to Las Vegas, attracted by the city's lifestyle, where everything works 24 hours a day. But there's an addendum. Like many, he was also looking to take advantage of the entertainment possibilities. But what weighs most heavily on his decision to live in the tunnels is his gambling addiction. Even when he wins, he quickly loses everything by continuing to gamble, which makes it impossible to accumulate enough money to get out of this condition. There are many stories that find refuge in a place where there are no official rules, only the logic of survival. There are reports of people who have lived there for years, keeping their distance from the surface, people who say they just want to disappear. Among these stories is that of Jay, interviewed by YouTuber Drew Binsky in a video that explores life underground in Vegas. In the interview, he says he's from New Hampshire and claims to have been in the tunnels for over a decade, although he's lost count of the exact time. He describes the place as horrible in every way. Flooding is a constant risk, theft is part of everyday life, and for him, the atmosphere is haunted, something he associates with dark presences that go beyond the physical. And yes, he is talking about hauntings, ghosts, and bad spirits. According to him, the tunnels once had a certain sense of community, but that's in the past, and today, the only rule there is distrust of everything and everyone. During his account, he also mentions the brutal scenes he has witnessed, including murders and mutilations, as well as the frequent use of drugs, which is common in this underworld. Number 11. Living conditions underground. Living in the drainage tunnels of Las Vegas is far from simple. There is no electricity installed, ventilation is almost non-existent, and basic sanitation is not even a possibility. Rats, cockroaches, and other insects share space with the human inhabitants. The precarious lighting comes from battery-operated lanterns, candles, or occasional openings that let light through from the surface. For many, belongings come from garbage, sporadic donations, or exchanges between residents. Some try to create a makeshift home, old mattresses, blankets, and boxes that serve as furniture. Others keep old photos and objects in an attempt to preserve some connection with a life that has been left behind. But in these conditions, hygiene is minimal and the risk of disease is extremely high. Bottles with urine and human feces scattered around the corridors are a common sight, creating an almost unbearable smell. This, combined with the absence of treated water, adequate ventilation, and electricity, makes these corridors anything but a decent place to live. Number 12. Different laws. In addition to this apocalyptic scenario, another fact that stands out are the laws. Because there is one law for the homeless and another for the tourists and wealthier classes. Strict rules, apparently designed to organize the city, end up pushing these people even further to the margins of society. On the main tourist thoroughfare, the Boulevard, it is forbidden for a homeless person to sit, stand for long periods of time, or be within 18 meters of an elevator. It sounds absurd, but the impact is real. Anyone who breaks these rules can be fined or even imprisoned. And the restrictions don't stop there. Pushing a supermarket trolley with a store's name on it is also illegal, even if it's used to carry the few belongings someone has. According to residents of the tunnels and NGOs, there is even a specific court to deal with cases related to the homeless, applying penalties that often don't extend to others. Associations and NGOs see these measures as an attempt to clean up the city for tourism. While the casinos glitter and the fun continues on the surface, the laws keep the homeless invisible, or even behind bars. If you enjoyed this journey through the city of sin, stick around. Subscribe to Bello Mundo, turn on notifications, and follow our next explorations of fascinating destinations and impressive lifestyles. Thanks for your company and see you on your next adventure.